Hello everyone, my name is Mario Del Valle, and this is a presentation on how crew resource management was implemented effectively and ineffectively. What exactly is crew resource management? According to the FAA in Advisory Circular 121-42, crew resource management is the effective use of all available resources, whether it's human resources, hardware, and information. Crew resource management can be implemented in every aspect of flight operations. It doesn't only involve the crew in the cockpit, but the flight attendants, mechanics, controllers, and many other personnel. But CRM doesn't just happen overnight. It requires an extensive amount of training. Training is one of the most important factors of CRM, and without the training, it can lead to the failure of flight operations. On August 30th of 2020, a pilot named John Toes was on an IFR flight at 5,000 feet AGL. John was a very experienced pilot with a background as a naval aviator and test pilot for Boeing with over 4,000 flight hours. On this flight, John experienced a full engine loss in the clouds at 5,000 feet, and even got worse when he lost alternator power and vacuum-powered instruments. Engine failures can happen to anyone, even the most experienced pilots. During this engine failure, John took control of the situation and followed the procedures necessary to emergency land the aircraft. He went down the checklist, switched fuel tanks, enriched the fuel mixture, and turned the boost pump. John then began to troubleshoot the issue to figure out what may have caused the issue to see if it may be resolved mid-flight. This was a great way to initiate an effective CRM. John utilized the information he was provided, which was the checklist and procedures in case of emergencies. John was focused at the task at hand and dedicated to the aviator's rule of thumb: aviate, navigate, communicate. John made sure he took control of his aircraft. Shortly after his engine failure, John also experienced the loss of his alternator and vacuum instruments on his descent. This is where his CRM training kicks in. He began to problem solve the issues that were occurring in order to have some control in the situation. With his time as a naval aviator and test pilot, they are trained to always be prepared for any stressful situations and keep a leveled head and it showed. But John also received assistance from air traffic controller Harry Kaufman. Harry was ensuring that John was calm and focused at all times, to relieve the stress by also keeping a level head himself. Working together as a team, Harry cleared other pilots of John's path and guided him to the runway needed to land. The implementation to include others into CRM happened during the third generation around the early 90s, creating training programs that integrates many different roles within flight operations. Harry and John utilized team strategy skills to assess the situation and ensure they were both on the same page to get John on the ground. With both these well-trained men, John landed safely with no damage to the aircraft nor personnel. On December 28, 1978, Flight 173, a DC-861, was en route to Portland International Airport. The aircraft was being operated by Captain Malvern McBroom with over 27,000 flight hours, First Officer Roderick Bibb with over 5,000 flight hours, and Second Officer Forrest Mendel with over 2,000 flight hours as Second Officer. During this flight, they experienced a malfunction to their landing gear. As soon as the pilots noticed the issue with the landing gear, the pilots began to circle in hopes to find a solution, but ended up starving the jet engines of their fuel. Once that happened, unfortunately, the aircraft endured a fatal accident and resulted in 10 fatalities and 23 seriously injured. When it comes to having an effective CRM, communication is extremely important. One of the basic elements of communication is the receiver. A receiver is the person the message is directed toward, which in this case would be the air traffic controller. It felt as the crew was not relaying well enough information with the controllers. When they did not provide information, it was very short. When they did provide information, it was very short and not very detailed. With 3 crew members, one can have been dedicated to communicating with control. While the flight contained a flight While the flight continued and Flight 173 began to circle, they began to start using more fuel than they expected. Again, they lacked in providing information to ATC. Also, the crew members lacked the roles of delegation and did not spread out the workload accordingly. With the crew not spreading the workload, everyone seemed to be on different pages. When finally asked about fuel weight, the captain stated 15 minutes. But the second officer and first officer did not agree with that. The crew should have been communicating with each other to ensure everyone was clear on the status of the aircraft. If the workload was spread out, it would have resulted in a less stressful situation, allowing the crew to communicate accordingly. This is also a sign of lack of training. When a crew does not have the adequate training or recurring training, then it provides no sense of direction to the team. They are unsure and unaware on what they need to do. The captain should have taken charge of and assigned duties for the FO and SO. The captain needed to set up and take roles as the leader he is trained to be. CRM not only makes us better at our jobs, but creates a safer flight operation. CRM has been written in blood and are instilled in the aviation community to prevent any more mishaps from happening. Involving everyone within flight operations was a major step in the right direction. Providing the necessary training everyone needed to work cohesively in a safe, efficient manner. That training won't be effective without the key factor of communication. That is the glue to any time of management. Not communicating between those working by your side can end in catastrophic failure. The more we work as a team and communicate effectively, the better we can manage our crews.